we live?
Yes, we are.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our all recovery meeting. We're here, and it's a nice, hot, sunny day. And my name is Craig. I'm one of your recovery coach here at Catholic Recovery Center. Glad to be here with you.
Good afternoon. My name is Raina. I'm one of the recovery coaches here. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
And I'm Karen, also Capital Recovery Coach. I'm sorry if I type.
All right.
Well, while you're doing that, I will read some of our announcements. Our Recovery on Wheels for July, we are, let's see, Monday, the 18th, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll be at the Bridgeton Police Department at 330 Fayette Street in Bridgeton. And then on the 20th, which is Wednesday, it'll be Trinity First Hope Center on 100 South 2nd Street in Millville. And both of those are from 10 to 2. What else do we have?
Right. We got the Saturday. We got the Saturday coming up, right? A family meeting.
Yeah, we'll be here from 11 to 2. Yeah,
11 to 2.
11 to 2.
And we have the group start from.
The meeting starts from 12 p.m. to 1.
All right.
And I believe somebody's gonna come this Saturday to share a personal story, personal experience with us. So if anyone would like to join also, you can come in person or join us through live stream.
Okay. So I believe we're gonna go over, if I'm not mistaken, part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, please go see part 1 of the 12 steps and 12-step program, everything you need to know. And this paperwork was brought to you by nextsteprecovery.com. And so we like to give them a shout out. And so this is some very good, interesting material. And so just for a minor review, I'm going to go over the first 6 that we covered. And the first one was number 1, honesty. That was the first step. Step 2 was hope. Then we went over step 3, which is faith. Then we went over and talked about step 4, which is courage. Then we did step 5, is one of my best, or one of my favorite, is integrity. And so today we're going to begin with step 6. From 6 to 12. All right. Or did we do? Oh, we did 6 in last week.
I was like, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
we did 6. That's my bag. Don't you know? Just bear with me, everyone. We
Been
did
a long
step
couple
6.
of days.
So step 6 was willingness. So we're going today is what? Step 7?
Step 7 is humility. We humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. I think humility is my favorite principle for recovery because it'll take you a long way. Let you be more open-minded. But step 7 connects with the idea of humility. This acts as an extension of step 3 and step 6, as now one knows specifics about their weaknesses. Now that they know what to remove, they can allow their higher power to assist. Remaining humble keeps the recovering individual from downsizing the impact of behaviors. It also causes one to check the limits of their will over disease. Most importantly, one is able to see the influence a greater force can have on addiction.
And so with that, below it talks about, it has a quote and say, humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. And so with me, I am in recovery as well. And so I know the importance of being humble. And knowing to be able to submit to my higher power that I know that I call my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's my higher power. That's what I use as my support network, my foundation to overcome a lot of obstacles. But I didn't always took that route. You know, I was always, someone who was didn't want to submit humbly in what the Word of God was saying. And so, and not only the Word of God, but being humble enough to learn some new behaviors. That was something that I had to learn. It was a process that I come to know that, it was a benefiting process for me because I began to learn more things about myself, how to think, what is my perception, how to choose the right choices, make the right decision in my life, as opposed to trying to do it on my own and my way. Because every time I did it my way, I messed up big time. And so now that I no longer just put myself first, self-centered, being self-centered, I began to be more of a humble individual.
Yeah, it talks about like check the limits of their will over the disease. I think it keeps things like in perspective to be able to step back and, be able to like, okay, this is something I need to work on, or I need to call on that higher power to help me work through it. Like realizing that, the world doesn't begin and end in what you think is right or wrong, be open-minded to different things.
Yeah, and also be humble to accept a sponsor, or a recovery coach. This, help, be humble enough to say, I need to talk and meet with someone. Maybe be humble enough to be a part of our men in training MIT. That is a session that we do every Tuesday at 5. I like to say live at 5. And so it's just basically men sharpening men, sharing their weaknesses and our strengths, our hopes, just coming together. And so as men, I know we have this bravado, macho mentality that, I can do it. Because as men, we have this innate ability to think that I can fix it.
You don't need the help. I can do it by myself.
I got it.
Yep.
Fall back, but a lot of times, even in a relationship, we don't have to always fix things. Just be supportive and what the other person is asking.
And I hear a lot of times too, like tough guys do not make it. Like if you're trying to act tough and harden and
Finish
put on this like facade, it's just you need to break that wall down.
Yeah, and so if we want to move on, all right, step 8. Anyone would like to take it? I'll take it. Step 8 says brotherly love made to list all person who had harm and became willing to make amends to them all. Now, before I even read this, because I went over these steps, I attended 12-step program, NA, AA, and I know for a fact. I was telling Mike the other day when we was going over the first half that I found out and learned by doing the 12 steps, you have to do every step in order. You can't say, okay, I'm gonna do 1 through 4, then I'm gonna go to number 7.
Yeah, we'll go back here. Yep.
And so
they're in order for a reason.
And that's what I was taught. And so number 8 is something that I believe that's where I struggle with, because not saying that I wasn't willing to make amends with someone, but a lot of times if someone that live in another state or someone that you have a hard time locating, it's like almost saying that, well, how can I move forward if I haven't made amends to that person? And so, but this is how I made amends with the person that I heard the harm that I wasn't or am unable to make contact with. I take it to God. And then I put it all on the line and I give it to him. And I said, well, Lord, I ask that you forgive me on behalf of those who I've hurt or harmed. All right, I just wanted to share that. I didn't want to, get all mushy. But yeah, and so step 8, brotherly love. Step 8 is like a moral inventory of one's social damages. Guilt management is vital to averting one's destructive coping behaviors. As in step 4, this is a form of assessing guilt for hurting others and taking action to admit it. Person we had harm makes us accountable for the danger and of unmanaged addiction. Facing this truth gives the affected another chance for progress. So therefore, facing the challenge of knowing, I'm speaking, not just reading it, but facing this truth gives the affected another chance for progress. Me knowing that I must take responsibility, it allows me to move forward in my journey and recovery. So I just want to share that part. So as the article says, this external focus is a recurring theme in the 12 steps. Making amends for social harm is focused on doing good outside of themselves. This replaces addictive behaviors that tend to be self-serving. So it takes away, all the focus, putting all the focus or being self-centered on myself when I take in consideration of others. Eventually, one has less guilt and more motivation to improve the lives of others. Those in recovery can move forward, willing to improve their social connections, right? And so say, make a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all.
And that's kind of like where that humility is going to flow over into this step, because now that you've been able to take a look at yourself, it's like, okay, now we can move on and take a look how I harmed others.
Right.
And it was funny because like I've worked the steps as well. And up until this point, I found it much easier to look at all the bad about me, but I had a little more difficulty like dealing with what I had done to others. Like I felt more shame or guilt for the things I had done to other people than what I was doing to myself, or you know what I mean, my imperfections.
That's a good assessment.
Yeah, so it's a humbling experience because you have to put it down on paper, you know what I mean, and look at the different people that you hurt and how you hurt them and how you can like move on to and make those amends with them. Where was it? The danger and eventually gonna let's go. Maybe it's something that you had said that I was thinking about, but well, it's more about step 9, I guess, anyway. But so if you want, we can move on.
We can move step 9.
You good?
If Karen would like to be a part of step 9, we get her
Yeah, I'll read
involved. Sure.
Step 9 is justice. Make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 9 drives an affected individual to take action to mend their social harms. 2 central themes apply here. Make direct amends wherever possible. Direct amends means one should give an in-person apology, attempt to fix the harm, and request forgiveness. Doing so provides an intentional gesture of goodwill.
Yeah, and I think that's where I was going with. I was trying to remember what you said, but like making a direct amends to people, because I think a lot of times we come into sobriety or recovery and we're like, okay, I got to fix everything now, except like fixing stuff is the 9th step, not the 2nd one or the 1st one. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's in order for a reason. Not that we can't start making indirect amends, but making the direct amends is a little different, because you have to be able to address the person and legitimately show your remorse for what you've done and how you've hurt them. And if you're so caught in self, you're not going to be able to do that. And this is like something that I'm still working on. I've moved on in the step process, but like direct amends with my mother, direct amends with my cousin, which involves sitting down and having tear-jerking conversations, which is not the easiest thing to do. But it's also a very rewarding thing to do.
The act of amends is not always possible, though. A recovering person may cause further damage to the affected person if they contact them. As such, you will have to assess if the specific relationship can put others in jeopardy. This can be mentally, physically, socially, or even legally if a crime was involved.
Mhm.
And further harm is if further harm is likely to be caused, it'd be wise to accept amends cannot be made. Indirect amends can be tried in some cases if in-person contact is too much of a risk. However, even indirect contact such as a letter may still not guarantee forgiveness. Acceptance practiced in earlier steps will help the recovering person let go of what they cannot control. By living in the world as is, we move towards healthier beliefs.
Yeah, not causing more harm is like essential when doing this process. I sat down and with the 8 step and wrote a list of people I had harmed and how I harmed them. I'm not necessarily going to go to that person and read that list. There are things that I have done like my parents don't know about, and telling them would just it would just upset them more. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily like, okay, I have to give you like the history of everything I've ever done that may have caused you harm directly or indirectly, because that could even cause more harm in itself.
Yeah.
It's more looking at the overall picture and, being able to like establish that you are aware of what you have done and to move on and, help correct it in that process. And it was that what you were saying about, for the person making the direct amends, you brought it to God instead and, had that conversation with him. And my sponsor is great with this kind of stuff. She has all kinds of clever ways to make amends to people, right? Because there's some people that, I owe amends who are no longer with us. They've moved on.
Yeah.
And like one was my best friend. He passed away when I was about 30 days clean. And I have been making amends by still spending time with his son. And, I visit the gravestone, just kind of talk to him like he's still there. She even suggested like maybe you could like plant a tree in their honor, like, little things like kind of like,
Yeah.
which is kind of like bringing it to God, you know what I mean? Like you're finding, other ways to repair that.
To be creative.
Yes,
I like
absolutely.
that. I like that because, like you said, you don't have to go in verbatim of each incident that occurred.
Mhm.
But as long as you've been upfront and honest with someone, it gives you that relief where you don't have to always have this in the back burner or back of your mind that you have to always live in the past.
Yeah.
And that, you can grow from it and learn from it as long as you don't, this is my take on it, as long as you don't continue on hurting people intentionally.
Mhm.
Now, if you do something unintentionally and you hurt someone, you still have to ask for their forgiveness, but always try to work on being a better person. That's my take on it.
Absolutely.
And would this entail also if someone's not ready to, forgive the person?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's going to happen. Not everyone who's going to like open their arms and hug you
Yeah.
after you've made that amends.
Yeah.
And that's something that you just have to accept. It's like, okay, they're not there yet. I made that effort.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about this again in 6 months, or you know what I mean. So,
like the article says, especially if a crime was involved, and if that crime was so severe that the victim or their relatives are still hurting, and can't come to grips of not letting go of what you have caused. That's something that you have to consider too.
You also have to make sure that you're not causing more harm to yourself. So like I have a couple people that were on my list that were physically and mentally, emotionally abusive towards me in the relationship. And I wrote down, what my wrongs were, but to contact them would be more harmful to me than if I went and, what I mean? It just,
you never know how it will turn out.
Right, because if they're not in that place, then it's just opening the door for, harm to me. Yeah, but I mean, at least, see, that's why you kind of have someone, you know, a sponsor or a mentor go through this with you, because then they can be like, okay, maybe you shouldn't say that.
Let's think this through.
Right, they can be like that, you know, but it's also somebody who knows what you did. So at least you're telling someone and admitting to someone.
So we're on step 10, I believe.
Mhm.
I believe.
My turn?
Yeah.
Step 10, perseverance. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 10 reinforces the moral inventory by maintaining one's ethical compass. The 4 steps saw recovering persons take stock of past disease triggering behavior. The 10th aims to lull current and future behaviors for more progress. So basically, you know, you looked at the different things in like step 4 or even step 6 that or actions or behaviors or traits or whatever they may have been that have caused harm, and being able to recognize those triggering behaviors so you can progress and not, you know, continue to make the same mistakes twice. If one continues to view addiction as a disease, one can continue to minimize the risk of agitating it. As such, progress does not mean one is cured or in control of disease. Yeah, don't think that just because you're doing the right thing for a while that, like, you know, you're good. You got to keep doing it.
Yeah, keep working on coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coping skills is so important, especially when it comes to triggers, craving, and urges, because they can pop up at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think that, like the article says, that you are cured or in control. If you're not sound in your recovery to replace negative thoughts or negative feelings with positive ones, we call it reinforcement. Replace a positive reinforcement, replacing negative perceptions and feelings with positive ones.
Mm-hmm. So admitting imperfect moments reduces the illusion of control and the cycle of guilt. I like how they put that. You know, when you immediately recognize that you have done something or said something, and are able to, you know, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. You know, maybe that came out wrong, or, you know, whatever it may have been. You know what I mean? You're setting yourself up to, like, not get stuck in that, like, circle of, you know, shame and guilt.
Admitting that there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not like sitting on it and, you know, waiting for it to stew into something worse. Further, this type of admission to an external force keeps the affected accountable. Their higher power and the fellowship of 12 steps keep people focused on recovery. Absolutely. And I think too, like, you know, it's about having support as well that will call you on it. Yeah. Like I always say, like, if I'm doing something that's hurting you or something that, like, upset you or whatever, I'd rather you come and tell me so I can work on it so I don't do it again. If I don't know, I can't fix it. But sometimes we don't realize that we're doing it, you know, and I'd rather the person come directly to me and say, Raina, that you did this and it really upset me, than to go tell someone else and then me never be able to correct the behavior or work on it.
Yeah, I'll go back to intentional hurt or harm versus unintentional.
Right.
You know, and so we're going to move on, I believe, and we're going to deal with step 11, spirituality. Let's talk about that one. And so that's important as well. So it says, step 11, spirituality sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Mm-hmm. So that is a desire of mine, is to always allow God to take the wheel, you know. And so that's my higher power, you know, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I like to say that because I that's what's dear to my heart. And so it's very important that I rely upon God to help me in every situation, because I'm human. I don't know all the answers. I can't, figure everything out on my own. But I know I can ask for human advice, but when I need spiritual advice, all right, don't start me to preaching. Right. But on a serious note, it says, step 11 continues the trend of talking and listening to a higher power. These concepts are established in the following terms. There's 3 bullets they make mention. First bullet talks about prayer. Second one, meditation. And the third one is conscious contact. As stated previously, spiritual language is purely for individual to define. It's up to you how you define your spiritual connection with God and how you go through that process. And so prayer, meditation, conscious contact, or reading, studying the Word of God, that can be your form or method of having a spiritual relationship or communion with, or here it talks about spiritual language. And that is basically a communion you have, just like you and I, or we have in here, we have a communion relationship with our Lord.
This next line is what I was about to say.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Where it talks about, however, it helps to think of prayer as talking and meditation as listening.
That's right. So when you're praying, you're talking to your higher power.
Yeah.
The meditation is you sitting and listening to
Yeah.
that higher power.
Wow, that's very important that you say that,
Mhm.
because I read somewhere where it says not only do we pray to God for whatever it may be, but also wait for a response.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to take, things in prayer, but do we wait on the response, or do we go ahead and take things into our own hands?
Right.
All right. It's a conscious contact with the higher power simply means talking and listening with intention, with the goal of growth in mind. One must use talking, listening, and reflection as tools. Being humble is the key to progress here. Intentional listening requires humility. The same applies to asking for help or sharing aspects of guilt, burden, and gratitude. Oh, there go that word gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you get that from?
That's it. Grateful
Right.
adage will never use. So one of the first things I was taught in recovery.
Wow.
Yep.
And so they have a quote here. It says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out.
And I love that they talk about God is like, we understand him, because
Right.
everybody's
Right.
concept of that is different.
Totally
You know
different.
what I mean? Like my higher power is more of a nature
Mhm.
type of thing. And sometimes like that higher power can work through other people.
Yeah.
So it's like important like to keep that open-mindedness and humility when people,
Yeah.
trying to help.
I like what you just said. I mean, it applies to how you see your higher power,
Mhm.
but the aspect of nature, the therapeutic aspect of it,
Yeah.
is so helpful to a lot of people,
Mhm.
and so just as we would look at the wonder of the creation of God, that is very therapeutic, because you look at, the heavens, like the terrestrials, the stars, the moon, the earth, and you say, wow. Then you see all the
You're
things.
just
that
a
are-
little small piece of that.
Yeah, and so it's very therapeutic.
Yes.
All right. So number 12, we'll leave that to Karen, and we'll sum it up, I believe.
Step 12 is service. Haven't had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. We try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Step 12 aims to reinforce one's internal lessons while externally guiding others.
Yeah, there's a phrase in my 12-step fellowship that you can only keep what you have by giving it away.
Absolutely.
So, you know, all that serenity, all that peace, all that, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Recovery, I guess, is great, but now it's time to turn around and put your hand out to help the other person up to get to that.
And we do it freely
Mm-hmm.
without no cost.
Yep.
Yeah.
These two themes capture the message. Carry this message to alcoholics.
And addicts.
Practice these principles in all our affairs.
And the practicing principles in all our affairs is extremely important because you can sit in a 12-step meeting, you can write on step work, you can memorize it all, but if you're not applying it to your life, then you're kind of missing the whole point. You know what I mean? It's got to go further than just, you know, when you're you're right, yeah, you have to like live this way in order to, you know, get the benefits of it.
Accountability, purpose, and fellowship are the glue of the 12-step recovery program.
Mm-hmm.
After encountering each step, a recovering person has built a new lifestyle with these concepts at the core. This insight guides new members and inspires them to recover. Fellowship encourages sober people to carry this message to addicted individuals.
Mike had asked me a question earlier this morning about bringing some info into 12-step programs. And, you know, I had like, I told him, I said, it's not something that we do. Like, there's like a purpose to why we do things the way we do. And, you know, how we follow these things. And, you know, every time you finish, I said, you know, you build this new lifestyle for yourself with the concept at the core. But like, you need everybody to like inspire others. You know what I mean? And I forget where I was going with the whole thing with him asking me that this morning, but something here stood out to me.
Being guided, like the fellowship, being guided by others.
Yeah, like the fellowship, the network that you build in there, and it's like that whole concept of everybody being in the same mindset. So when new people come through the door, you know what I mean? It's, attraction. That's where I was going with it. Because I was told when you look for a sponsor to find someone that has what you want. And not that means like, oh, they have a nice car or a big house or anything. It means that they have the peace, the serenity, the joy in their life that you were lacking when you're out in active addiction. And that's why when we say we can't bring in outside information, because we don't promote, we attract. So by living the program, you're showing people coming in that they too can have a better way of life.
Oh, so
I was
Makes
doing somewhere with that.
yeah. So what probably stood out is the sentence she read: a recovering person has built a new lifestyle with these concepts at the core.
Yep.
Wow,
Yep.
that's good. You know, you're walking and you're living, and you're not just talking it, but you
Yep.
walking, living.
Yep.
Okay.
Meanwhile, those in sobriety are held accountable by the fellowship to minimize the harm of their lifelong disease. One must practice these principles in all affairs. Imperfection is the only guarantee, so some may relapse and revisit previous steps. But these steps aim to provide stability with practice and support in challenges.
Right. And that relapse does not have to be part of your story. You know, I have relapsed several times, but once I found the 12-step program, like that just solidified my recovery. And that's the path that worked for me. You know what I mean? There's many out there, but this is what has worked for me.
Wow, that's good. And so today we're talking about, if I get it right, the 12 steps and 12-step program. Everything you need to know. So last week, I believe our first part, we did 1 through 6 of the 12 step. Now, today, we just covered 7 through 12. And so, please be encouraged and let someone know about the good things that we're doing here at Capital Recovery Center here at 72 North Pearl Street. All right? My name is Craig. I'll see you on the next segment.
Thank you.